Hey boo, welcome back to my channel. So if you saw last week's video, then you're coming here with a ton of information and appreciation for our natural hair. And if you haven't seen that video already, I'm gonna link it above so that you can get a broad overview of natural hair history starting from the earliest empires pretty much up till now. And that, I feel like, is really gonna give you a better understanding and appreciation for today's topic, which is transitioning versus big chopping. So if you need to take a pause and go back and watch that video, I'll give you a minute to do that. But if you've already done so, then stay tuned. So, as I mentioned, this video is going to be about transitioning versus big chopping. And what I'm going to be talking about really is going to be some benefits and misconceptions of both. So throughout my hair journey, I've gone through transitioning and big chopping several times. And so I come to you with only my opinion and perspective about both. I will always tell you and promote here to do what works for you. If that's not your ministry, then do something else. So let's just jump right into some of the benefits of transitioning. So the biggest benefit about transitioning, and really I'm sure why most people do it, is it gives your hair time to grow out. Not everyone that's transitioning is trying to achieve a specific length, but some people may just be taking time to fully understand their hair, and that's okay. And that leads me into the second benefit, which is it really does give you time to experiment with being natural and finding natural hairstyles and products and influencers or people that look like you to familiarize yourself with. So again, you can really build up the confidence in this new hair journey, because for a lot of us, this is something new. Like, I know for me, I did not grow up in a household where natural hair was promoted. So when I started my natural hair journey, it really was a new experience for me. So everything I did was experimentation and trial and error. And for some of you out there too, I'm sure that your natural hair journey will be similar. And that's why transitioning can be okay. That just reinforces the third benefit of being able to fully experiment and experience everything that being natural has to offer. So I know that I was able to try a lot of different styles, find a whole bunch of new natural haired people, and really immerse myself in that natural hair journey. Now, some benefits for big chopping. Big chopping instantly reveals your true texture. So regardless of if you're transitioning out a perm, just heat damage, what have you, when you cut off those differentiated ends, I will say, I won't call them damaged or whatever, but I will call them differentiated ends, you're really able to see that new growth that's been coming through all along. And so big chopping really shows you this is what your hair looks like with all of the different curl patterns or uniformity it may or may not have. This is what you got. And so that really leads me into the second benefit of really being able to immerse yourself in the natural hair journey. So you're really able to have a lot of experience and learning with your hair as you go through those similar trials and errors that you experience even with being, a transitioning natural. Big chopping is not void of having those same trial and errors. If not, if anything, you may even have more because you are going headfirst into this thing. But that just gives you time to really familiarize yourself with your hair, really get to know it, get to know yourself as this new natural haired person so that you can really grow and continue to learn in this journey. And that kind of goes with the third benefit, which is that your hair is more uniform. Now, as natural haired people, we notice that we may not necessarily have the exact same hair type all the way around our head, but you do have curls throughout your hair, which may be different than how your hair was before. At least I know for me, even though I was transitioning out of perm, the curls that I had and the curl texture that existed at that time was a lot looser than the current curl pattern that I have now. So once I big chopped, then that really changed the uniformity of the curls that I had on my head. And similarly to that, as I was mentioning with the last tip of being able to experiment, I was really able to experiment with a lot of different styles when I big chopped as well, even though I decided to go for like a short tapered even though I decided to go with a short tapered fro, I was really able to look up different styles, finger coiling, and things to try to achieve the results that I was looking for. Now, some misconceptions. Let's talk about misconceptions about transitioning. The first misconception is that all of your hair is damaged. Realistically, we grow healthy hair from our scalp. That is biologically the case, and biologically, you grow hair on a regular basis. That does not necessarily change just because you may have damaged ends. So, as a transitioning person, even though you may have damaged hair or differentiated hair, as we said, at the ends, that does not mean that the hair that you're growing is unhealthy. The hair that is on your head is by and large healthy, although the ends in certain areas may need work. Really, that was kind of just like two misconceptions, being that all of your hair is damaged and you can't grow healthy hair. Just because you're transitioning and you may have had a perm or whatever, that also doesn't necessarily mean that your hair was unhealthy. You could have had thriving hair when you had a perm, but again, it was a different curl pattern. And now we're trying to get to just what is at the natural, uninhibited root of what our hair is. So don't think that just because you had a perm or you used heat that your hair is completely unhealthy, it's completely damaged, it's without it's without recourse, you can't save it. That's not necessarily the case. But that also kind of leads into some misconceptions about big chopping. The first of which being that your hair will be 100% healthy once you cut it off. That's not necessarily the case. As I mentioned, you have differentiated ends, not necessarily damaged ends. So just because you cut off that different curl pattern and changed hair at the bottoms does not necessarily mean that you are going to automatically have a completely fully healthy head of hair that you don't have to do anything for. A lot of people big chop and think that they don't have to follow it up with a strong regimen, but you have to keep in mind that to maintain healthy hair, you really have to have maintenance of that and have a routine and a regimen to maintain the health and integrity of your hair. That leads me into the next misconception, is that your hair totally changes once you cut it off. And that's not necessarily the case. As I mentioned, you do have a more uniform curl pattern, but that doesn't mean that your hair is going to be completely 100% different, totally different to deal with. Although some people may experience that, that is not necessarily the case for all people. So yeah, you have to keep in mind that although it may be a new experience to you, instinctively and biologically, this is not something new to your body. So you will adapt to this new journey and this new process in ways that you may not have imagined at that time. And this is going to lead me into my last misconception about big chopping, is that you have to cut all of your hair off. You don't have to go bald just to call it a big chop. You don't have to cut off all of your hair for it to be a big chop. But big chopping, in my opinion, is cutting off a large portion of your hair and really removing those differentiated ends that you do have. Now, personally, I did not cut all of my hair off when I big chopped, but at the time that I big chopped, I was really interested in having a tapered fro, so I did go for that. But it is not necessarily required for all people, because as I mentioned back with the transitioning benefits, you can transition your hair to a length that works for you and cut it off from there. But keep in mind, I guess, a side misconception of being natural in general is that your hair will be so short that you are gonna look terrible once you've cut it off. And you have to keep in mind that you're dealing with curls, and curls' natural instinct, I guess we can say, is to spring up. Their natural instinct isn't to hang down low, because that would really risk the integrity of the curl. A curl's natural instinct is to shrink, but people may experience even different levels of shrinkage depending on their hair type. So keep in mind, even after you've cut off all of your hair, you may not be experiencing what is your true hair length because curls naturally are going to shrink. So there are a lot of different methods to stretch your hair, and I have posted about those on my channel. So make sure you check that out to learn a little bit more about stretching if you're interested in that. But overall, that is going to bring us to the end of this video and just, a few benefits and misconceptions about transitioning and big chopping. And I'm sure there are more out there. But as I mentioned, I've done both. And personally, I think that they both have their benefits and they both have their drawbacks. As I was transitioning, I found that I was able to master styles that I have since not been able to do since being natural, like really getting a good Bantu knot out. So, there will be some good experiences and there are going to be some bad experiences on both ends of the coin. But ultimately, at the end of the day, that is only going to lend itself to your truly natural head of hair. So it's a journey. It's not a destination. And it doesn't mean, too, that it's ever going to come to an end and that you'll ever stop learning or that you will only do one big chop. Because I will tell you, I've done about 3, just depending on how I felt about my hair and what I wanted to do with it. So I've gone back to short hair multiple times. This is probably the longest my hair has been. And there is no shame in wanting to change your game. So if you want to go back to short hair and chop it all off, do you. So yeah, that's going to bring us to the end of this video. I hope that you guys learned a little bit. Overall, how I feel about big chopping versus transitioning is there's a place for both of them. And you're going to do, at the end of the day, what feels right for you. And that is the only thing that you can do at the end of the day. So if you haven't done so already, make sure that you smash that thumbs up, you click the like button. And again, if you haven't done so already, make sure you go back and watch the natural hair history video because that's going to give you a ton of information. And then next week, we're going to come back and we're going to talk a little bit more about hair porosity. So if you're looking to learn some more about that, turn on the notification bell and I'll see you guys next time on Life of V. Bye, boo.
Take a sip, take a sip, take a sip, take a sip, take a sip. You deserve it. You deserve it. You know you're worth it.